Chapter 41, Information. We'll speak, whatever you want to ask we'll answer. Jiang Li was very satisfied with the attitude of the twin devils of the Thorn River. This was how humans were. When they had nothing, they were not afraid of anything. However, when they had something, they would be afraid of losing it. Then, let's talk about it first. What's the matter with the birth of the demon in the Southern Seal Kingdom? Jiang Li asked the question that he wanted to know the most. You don't know, forget it. We actually don't know much about it ourselves. We only heard of this news. A cultivator witnessed a zombie demon that was transformed from a golden core cultivator who died nearby. Wu Jiang was surprised by Jiang Li's question, but he, who was plagued by pill poisoning, no longer had the mood to consider these trivial matters. A zombie demon transformed from a golden core cultivator. Is this news reliable? Furthermore, such a terrifying demon has appeared. It's one thing for you not to escape, but why do you dare to come over and join in the fun? Don't tell me you're here to eliminate the demon and defend the people. When Jiang Li asked these two questions, the Wu brothers instantly became even more depressed. This fellow barely knew anything about the general knowledge of the cultivation world. He was an extremely young child, yet they, as the twin devils of the Thorn River, had actually fallen into the hands of such a newbie. It was truly heart-wrenching. The news was spread by the Immortal Ascension Pavilion. They have a good reputation. This kind of information can't be faked. They also provided evidence that there was indeed a golden core cultivator who died here 70 years ago. His body was never found. As for why we came, aren't the treasures left behind by this golden core cultivator and his transformed zombie core sufficient to make us cultivators go crazy? As the saying goes, humans die for wealth and birds die for food. The temptation of a golden core cultivator's legacy was something that even high-level cultivators of the same level could not resist, let alone these bottom-tier cultivators. Although the probability was very low, what if they found the treasure? Almost everyone came with this thought. Even Jiang Li could not help but feel tempted after hearing this news. Looks like the scope of this news and influence is very wide. How many cultivators have arrived? Where are they gathered? How many sects and forces have arrived? Where are they? Jiang Li asked another long string of questions. In the end, he simply took out a panorama map of the royal family of the Southern Seal Kingdom and asked the two of them to draw while talking. Transforming a zombie core was not easy, and it was even harder for a golden core cultivator to become a zombie demon. This was also why those cultivators were searching for graves or yin lands everywhere. If not for the proper time and location, how could a golden core cultivator suddenly transform into a zombie demon? Wait a minute, if that's the case, wouldn't the prime suspect be that? Jiang Li looked at the map. Sure enough, although the cultivators were scattered around, they were basically all scattered along the Mother River that ran through the Southern Seal Kingdom. You're right, the most likely lair of the zombie demon is in this Mother River. Wu Jiang's eyes flickered. In the end, he did not conceal anything and told Jiang Li everything truthfully. He felt that since he did not know much, this information might endanger Jiang Li and might help him take revenge. Moreover, a cultivator who specializes in feng shui array formations calculated that once the corpse falls into this Mother River and is washed away by the river water, the final landing point will not be much different. It will be between these waters. Right now, most of the cultivators are there. The cultivators of the sect each occupy a piece of water to fish it out, while rogue cultivators can only try their luck in the cracks. I've said everything that needs to be said. You're a sect cultivator anyway. If you want to, you can try it there. Jiang Li glanced at the map. Sure enough, he saw the name of Scripture Storage Valley on the four most spacious areas. Yes, you are very honest. An honest person needs to be rewarded. Now you are free. Wu Jiang and Wu He were overjoyed. Then they felt a pain in their necks and fainted. I've already interrogated them, but this contract is really troublesome. I really can't kill them like this. But to let them off like this is letting them off too lightly. Previously, these two guys had wanted to kill him. With his petty personality, it was really hard to let them off just like that. After thinking for a moment, Jiang Li controlled the black zombie and carefully sucked away the blood of the twin devils of the Thorn River until they were anemic. He then fed them 2 waste pills each before letting the matter rest. After consuming a total of 5 waste pills, the accumulated pill toxins were extremely terrifying. It was enough to suppress their cultivation levels to the limit of nearly 100 years. Pill poisoning would even slowly corrode them, permanently damaging their spiritual roots and lifespan. In the next 100 years, they would become sickly people worse than ordinary people. It was hard to say if the little lifespan of 2 qi refinement cultivators could last them until the end of the effect. Only then did Jiang Li finally nod in satisfaction. When he saw that it was about time, he put on a black robe for himself and the zombie again. Then, they rushed towards an unknown manor in the bustling capital city. Previously, when they came out, they had deliberately said, "Return to the palace and gather." That was just to fool people. Their true meeting place was in this nameless manor. As the saying went, homegrown flowers were not as fragrant as wild flowers. The current empress of the Southern Seal Kingdom was very fierce. She did not allow the king to take in beauties and abandon governance. However, this king was a lecher. More than 10 concubines in the palace were not enough. He dug a tunnel from the ground to this manor and opened a crystal courtyard outside. This made it convenient for Jiang Li and the others to secretly meet up. When Jiang Li returned, the other 3 people had not arrived yet. It was unknown if they were seeking information or if they had already died under the obstruction of the malicious rogue cultivators. In the manor, the other 4 companions had already arrived and were currently hiding in a house, waiting anxiously. Jiang Li let the zombie hide in the corner and stand guard while he went back to report his safety. Soon 4 hours passed. The black zombie sensed a faint smell of blood. It was the other 3 who were seriously injured. They supported each other as they walked back. They were in a sorry state, but there were no pursuers behind them, which made the few people here heave a sigh of relief. However, when the 3 of them returned and saw Jiang Li already sitting in the room leisurely eating fruits, their faces were filled with shock. Just like Jiang Li, they were attacked by rogue cultivators. If not for the items from Xianxia's family protecting them, and because he saved the other 2 people in time, they would have died. However, Jiang Li was alone. He had actually broken through the obstruction and returned here safely. He did not even look injured. Chapter 42. Underwater Breathing. As the strongest person among the 8 of them, Xianxia still had some arrogance and conceit. In order to save his 2 companions, he had suffered quite a bit in the hands of those rogue cultivators. When he looked at Jiang Li again, who was leisurely meditating in the room, it truly felt slightly uncomfortable. Xianxia, come and help heal their injuries. Xianxia hurriedly stepped forward and began to heal the heavily injured Qianfen and Wang Liuyang with her spell technique. "I'm sorry, everyone. We didn't obtain much information this time." Xianxia apologized humbly at first. Everyone waved their hands. It was already their greatest contribution that they could go out and lure the enemy away so that the others could retreat safely. The other 4 who had fled in the dark had no right to blame him. "Jiang Li, what about you? Did you find out anything?" Xianxia looked at Jiang Li and asked again. Previously, they did not know what happened in the Southern Seal Kingdom. They swaggered into the city and conducted a large-scale investigation. This caused them to expose themselves and be targeted by some rogue cultivators with ulterior motives. It could be seen how important information was outside. However, it was obvious that Xianxia did not expect Jiang Li to discover anything. After all, in his opinion, Jiang Li was only at the initial stage qi refinement realm without much combat strength. He only asked this because he saw that Jiang Li seemed to be lucky and held some hope. Jiang Li didn't say anything further when he saw this, and he took out the map of the entire Southern Seal Kingdom and spread it on a long table in the room before starting to explain. We were truly unlucky to have encountered the birth of this demon. This has nothing to do with our mission. In fact, I have news from the Immortal Ascension Pavilion. The corpse of a golden core cultivator recently transformed into a zombie demon and attracted the attention of many cultivators. Jiang Li pointed at the map of the Mother River and explained, causing the others to be more and more surprised the more they listened. In these 4 hours, he still had to deal with the rogue cultivators' attacks. How could he find out so much? Even if they wanted to think he was lying, Jiang Li's explanation was very reasonable. Moreover, there was utterly no need for him to do this. What was the point of fabricating such a story to trick everyone? Looking at the mottled blood on the map, it was obvious that he had experienced some ordeal to obtain this information. Jiang Li, it's not that I don't believe you, but how do you know all this? Xianxia's expression was awkward. In the end, he could not help but ask out of curiosity. Jiang Li roughly explained the situation to them by lowering the strength of the 2 rogue cultivators who attacked him by a level. You're saying that you defeated a mid-stage Qi refinement cultivator and an initial stage Qi refinement cultivator by yourself. You even captured them. How is this possible? Gasped Jiang Li. Could it be that you've already broken through? If he was still at the initial stage Qi refinement realm, it was absolutely impossible for him to achieve this. They were very certain of their judgment. They all gasped upon realization. In other words, Jiang Li had already silently surpassed most of them and had broken through to the mid-stage Qi refinement realm after Xianxia. It's all luck. Your spiritual root aptitude is not inferior to mine. I believe you can all break through soon. Also, I wasn't really alone. Jiang Li snapped his fingers and the black zombie pushed open the door from outside. Although the demonic and rotting smell was already covered by medicine, it was still very pungent when it got close. The strength of a black zombie was roughly between the mid-stage Qi refinement realm and the late-stage Qi refinement realm. Although its weakness was obvious, if a cultivator was not prepared to deal with it, the advantage of having thick skin and immense strength was very prominent. A zombie. Lu Xianxian, this little girl, was clearly more afraid of ugly things like zombies. She immediately jumped behind everyone, not daring to take another look. The others did not lose their composure, but when they first saw this thing, they were instinctively shocked. However, after discovering that this thing was completely under Jiang Li's control, they put away the cheap talisman in their hands and only covered their mouth and nose. It was a little unbearable to endure this smelly corpse. Jiang Li, is this what you brought over using the coffin? Xianxia recalled the coffin. That's right, I still have to rely on the black zombie this time. Although it stinks a little if it's useful, I can't care about such a minor detail. Waving his hand, the black zombie retreated and disappeared into the darkness. Only then did the smell in the air become much better. This time, everyone completely believed Jiang Li's information. They stared at the map and started to think together. If only I could contact the sect elders. The river section, where the cultivators gathered, was the wide and slow riverbed of the Mother River. It was not very close to the southern Seal Kingdom's capital. It was basically impossible for them to do such a thing. If they wanted to rush there, they would undoubtedly have to pass through the dangerous areas where many rogue cultivators were wandering. If all of them were at the mid-stage Qi refinement realm or above, they could still give it a try. However, it would be difficult for Jiang Li and Xianxia to carry the rest of them who were much weaker. If that was the case, they might as well return to the sect and report the incident. It would be safer for them. Of course, an accident might happen in these 5 days, and their windfall would be gone. After struggling for a short while, Jiang Li suddenly thought of something. It was the 2 spirit herbs that the twin devils of the Thorn River had given him. I might be able to try, Jiang Li spoke, drawing the attention of everyone. That night, Jiang Li did not stay for long before leaving the manor with the black zombie. This time, the solution was very simple. The other 7 people stayed in the capital and tried their best to cover up the situation of the unconscious children. On the other hand, Jiang Li set out by himself, and he passed through layer upon layer of obstructions to head to the lower region of the Mother River to report to the sect elders. It could be said that he had taken on the most difficult task on himself. Regarding this, Xianxia and the others promised that Jiang Li would get the most benefits after this was over. Jiang Li smiled and did not say anything. Taking advantage of the night, Jiang Li and the black zombie jumped out of the city wall and ran all the way to the river. He looked at the shadows that were vaguely following behind him, and then looked at the river that could barely see the opposite shore. Jiang Li did not hesitate to take out a bunch of water plants that were like kelp from the bag and directly stuffed them into his mouth. Next, he and the black zombie dived into the murky water. Consumed fresh fish gill grass. Added status, underwater breathing. Underwater breathing. Perform normal respiratory activities underwater. Duration, 2 hours -+. Consumed fresh fish gill grass. Added status, algae parasite. After pressing the plus button for 5 seconds, the status of underwater breathing was permanently kept. After pressing the minus button for 5 seconds, the algae parasite status was removed. 10 breaths later, 3 figures flashed over from behind. Damn it, he escaped. Second brother, what's going on? Didn't they say that this is a group of rich rookies? Why are they so good at getting away? Chapter 43, Drifting. The rogue cultivator in the lead was very displeased by Jiang Li's escape. He grabbed a rock the size of a basketball and smashed it into the river. However, the water ripple was completely erased in the turbulent Mother River. Not a trace could be seen. Big brother, I don't know either. We've all tried. Among those 8 guys, 2 are at the mid-stage Qi refinement realm. The rest are all at the initial stage Qi refinement realm. They have no experience at all. We were standing in the crowd today and they didn't even notice us. Big brother, why don't we rush into the palace tonight? As usual, we'll keep the women and kill the men. The shifty-eyed cultivator made a suggestion. Bang! However, before he could smile, his big brother kicked him to the ground. Are you a fool? They're all disciples of a sect. If we can kill them cleanly and eliminate all evidence, fine. Now one of them has escaped and you're still suggesting we make a move. Do you want to die? The leader of the rogue cultivators had a hideous expression. He felt helpless towards his younger brother's stupidity, but at the same time, he was angry at the sect for oppressing rogue cultivators. Then what should we do? The younger brother asked weakly. What do we do? Find him, of course. Let's go find him along the river bank. I don't believe he won't come out and catch his breath. While these rogue cultivators were chasing along the river bank, Jiang Li and the black zombie were already brought down by the rapid flow of water. Jiang Li chose to set off alone naturally, not because of his sense of responsibility, nor did he have any intention to be a hero. His relationship with Xianxia and the rest had not reached that stage yet. He chose to do this partly because of his mindset as a transmigrator, feeling that he was destined to have this fortuitous encounter. With such a precious treasure appearing, it was hard for him to not interfere. On the other hand, it was due to his self-confidence. Although he was only at the mid-stage Qi refinement realm, he had tested his strength against the 2 unlucky fools, the twin devils of the Thorn River. With the enhancement of the buffs, he could beat almost all Qi refinement cultivators. As for the stronger Foundation establishment cultivators, they were still busy searching for the zombie demon, so it was impossible for them to appear on the outskirts of the river. In addition, Jiang Li planned to follow the river trail and avoid most of the cultivators. His safety was actually very guaranteed. It might even be safer than staying in the city. Thus, Jiang Li volunteered to accept this mission. However, plans could not keep up with changes. Bang! A muffled sound of collision rang out from under the water. Jiang Li's skin was completely dyed black as he fiercely collided with a rock under the water. A faint fishy smell surged in his throat. Jiang Li, who cultivated the mountain-crushing scripture every day, had suffered some injuries from that collision just now. After colliding, Jiang Li's head faced downwards as he was wrapped by the water current and spun like a top while descending rapidly. This feeling was really unbearable. High-speed spinning, added status dizziness. Dizziness, disorientated by 60 degrees, thinking speed decreased by 40%, mind temporarily decreased by 0.3. Duration, 20 minutes minus plus. Although Jiang Li could swim, it was only at the level where he would not drown. It was completely incomparable to swimming like a fish. The undercurrent was so strong that he could not maintain his balance. Not to mention swimming, his entire body was being carried by the river water. He was going left 3 times, right 3 times, up 3 times, and down 3 times. He could not stop rolling at all. In just a few minutes, Jiang Li was stunned because he spun too quickly. If not for his quick reflexes, he would not have been able to eliminate the dizziness status in time. If the dizziness continued to stack, he might completely lose consciousness. It was no wonder that the 3 rogue cultivators did not dare to chase after them. Qi refinement realm cultivators would also drown here. The power of nature in this world was much greater than in his previous life. The power of the rivers and waves was enough to tear apart a person's body. If one did not possess superhuman swimming abilities, it was not impossible to be submerged by the river and drown. Fortunately, Jiang Li had the fish gill grass, and the effect was indeed good. Although his breathing was not as smooth as when he was on the ground, after the water flowed into his nose, it would produce a large amount of bubbles. The oxygen that had fused into the water was extracted, so that he did not have to worry about drowning. But that was all. Bang! Another rock collided with Jiang Li. A ball of blood appeared in the river and was quickly scattered by the current. The status of underwater breathing could not help his swimming skills. Jiang Li had also tried to resist the power of the water or go along with it in order to regain control of his body and reduce the collision with the hidden rocks. However, how could such profound techniques be grasped in a short time? He still continued to roll around and collide into various reefs. However, during this ruthless collision, Jiang Li sensed that his mountain-crushing scripture was currently advancing by leaps and bounds. The effect of body tempering was far greater than the effect of him crashing into the mountain wall. It seemed that this mountain-crushing scripture was really a self-torture cultivation method. The more ruthless the impact, the better the effects of his cultivation would be. No, if this goes on, I'm going to die. After being underwater for more than an hour, Jiang Li saw that his health bar had already fallen by a quarter. Of course, the numerical value of his health and stamina could not completely display Jiang Li's physical condition, but it had a considerable reference value. No, I need to go up and catch my breath. Wood armor technique. He channeled his wood attribute spiritual qi and successfully cast the spell technique. In the light filled with vitality, a layer of wooden armor quickly grew out and completely covered Jiang Li's entire body. The wooden armor that covered his entire body moved upwards with sufficient buoyancy. Jiang Li's nearly sinking body was constantly lifted up by the wooden armor to the surface of the water. From time to time, a few undercurrents would form a whirlpool and pull him back into the water. However, this whirlpool could not last long and would dissipate soon. The buoyancy of the wooden armor would never disappear. After going up and down, Jiang Li finally surfaced. Jiang Li was a little speechless. He did not expect that his first attempt at using this wood armor technique would actually be to use it as a life vest. Being under the water was too dangerous. Cultivators with water attribute spiritual roots might fare better, but people like him were no different from ducks. Jiang Li lay on the water surface, floating and sinking along with the waves. He was thinking about what to do next. Floating on the surface of the water made him too obvious of a target. Furthermore, the movement speed was several times slower than underwater. It was obvious that he could not do that. In a while, the black zombie would probably be washed away. However, if he entered the water again, his small body would not be able to withstand the impact. Wait, the black zombie. Jiang Li hurriedly used the zombie seed to communicate with the black zombie. Although the zombie was sturdy, it did not know defense, so it was probably inferior to him. Could it be that it had already been shattered by the collision? When he sensed the black zombie's condition, Jiang Li's expression became strange. It was not that the black zombie was not injured, but its injuries were much lighter than Jiang Li's. It did not move at all, flowing along like a motionless corpse. However, every time it was about to hit the rock, it would move away along with the flow of the water, so it did not suffer much damage. Could it be that all that he had done earlier was not only useless, but had an opposite effect? Chapter 44, Piranha. Feeling the black zombie's current state, Jiang Li paused for a moment as he floated on the water surface. He gritted his teeth and finally made up his mind, dispelling the wood armor technique. Without the wooden armor's buoyancy, Jiang Li's body quickly sank into the churning river water. He rolled and spun again. His body stiffened instinctively as he tried to resist the water flow. Calm down, calm down. Relax, relax. Jiang Li endured the weightlessness in the water and relaxed his muscles. Just like a game character who was not being controlled, he cast aside his body's feelings and watched as he flowed along with the waves. At first, the intense spinning did not slow down, but instead sped up. In the murky river, the shadow ahead grew larger and larger. It was clearly another rock. Spiritual armament, mountain-crushing scripture. The impending collision made him instinctively want to defend himself. However, even if he hit it with his defense, he would not die, right? Why not give it a try? Give it a try. Jiang Li removed the armament and relaxed his bulging muscles from circulating the mountain-crushing scripture. He felt himself being propelled by the current. His head flew toward the rock. Whoosh tilde. It was impossible for him not to panic. However, the outcome of his head being smashed did not happen. Amidst the sound of liquid flowing, Jiang Li's body seemed to have turned boneless. Following that, the water flow that suddenly turned around twisted, and he actually barely avoided the hard rock. It worked, he really avoided it. Under the water, Jiang Li was overjoyed. He excitedly spat out a series of bubbles from his mouth. This was indeed feasible. With this successful experience, his confidence increased greatly. His body naturally became more relaxed as he followed the rapid flow of water. After a long time, the sun rose. The gentle light penetrated the river, leaving only a mottled shadow on Jiang Li's face. Gurgle tilde. A few air bubbles gushed out from his nose. Jiang Li stepped back from the cultivation state of the ghost wood art. He sensed that the water around him had already become calm and gentle. With a thought, it seemed that he had already reached the gentle flow region. At this moment, there was a slight tug and pain on his hair and skin. He opened his eyes and saw a group of palm-sized fish that looked like axes tearing at his body. He raised his hand and used appraisal. Compared to humans, appraisal was much better for these weak and low-level ordinary creatures. Name: Sawtooth piranha. Type: aquatic animal. Age: mature. Gender: female. Source of nutrition: meat. Habit: crowd hunting. So, was he being targeted by a group of piranhas? Jiang Li shook his head and hands, trying to shrug off the few piranhas that were hanging on his body. However, unlike fishes that would be frightened away by abnormal activity, the piranhas were not afraid of humans, and they instead took Jiang Li's actions to be the struggles of the prey before death, causing them to become abnormally excited. They bit Jiang Li's skin and hair and began to squirm crazily. How could Jiang Li, a dignified immortal cultivator, be afraid of small fishes like these? He grabbed a piranha and pulled it off his body. A few serrated teeth could not break through Jiang Li's skin. Instead, they stuck onto his body and were pulled out from the fish's mouth. You want to eat me? Your teeth aren't sharp enough. Jiang Li exerted strength in his hand, and he crushed the piranha that was still struggling in his hand into a bloody mess. just as he was about to do the same to the other sawtooth piranhas. He suddenly noticed something amiss. The water flow seemed to be vibrating. Liquid spread vibrations far better than gas. Soon, the vibrations became more and more obvious. Not far from him, a dense black shadow was enveloping him at high speed. Wait a moment, habit, crowd hunting. Jiang Li suddenly felt his body go numb from his scalp all the way to his toes. Oh heavens! The smell of blood earlier had obviously stimulated a large wave of sawtooth piranhas. They were now 100 times more terrifying than stirring up a hornet's nest. Jiang Li wanted to swim and escape, but he was not a scaled demon, so how could he possibly swim faster than a fish? A dark cloud seemed to have shrouded over from the water, surrounding Jiang Li. Countless ferocious piranhas swam crazily, stirring up the water region as if it was about to boil. Swoosh! Hundreds of thousands of sawtooth piranhas swarmed forward. Jiang Li suddenly thought of something, and he stretched out his right hand into his bosom before taking out a jet-black waste pill and directly crushing it before spreading the residue in the river. A ball of ink spread out in the already turbid river water. In just a few breaths, the few piranhas hanging on his body stopped moving. They released their mouths and fell to the bottom of the river. The large group of piranhas that rushed over also stopped abruptly. They were extremely disgusted by the smell of waste pills, and they continuously moved around the inky region, not daring to take a step past the filthy area. Damn it, he was almost scared to death. Waste pills, oh waste pills, they are really the best. Jiang Li was touched. A bag of waste pills was produced every day in the alchemy hall. Each time they were put into the landfill, they had to be buried at least 20 meters underground. Otherwise, they would pollute the spiritual materials growing on the ground. That touching smell and rich color made it look like a poison that was despised by others. It was completely harmful garbage. But he did not expect that this waste pill would be of great help to him several times. As expected, Jiang Li, was a genius. Just as he was praising himself for his wisdom, from the corner of his eye, Jiang Li suddenly saw a yellow object shoot down into the water. With his eyesight and experience, it was definitely a talisman. Boom! With the talisman as the center, the liquid was expelled, creating a temporary vacuum. The violent shock wave spread out in a sphere. Wherever the shock wave passed, a large number of fish were unable to resist and were jolted unconscious, floating towards the water surface. Jiang Li was a little far away. When the shock wave landed on his body, his mind went blank for a moment. He was almost stunned. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Another series of talismans shot into the water. The continuous series of explosions made the originally arrogant group of piranhas dizzy. Seeing that the situation was not good, Jiang Li tore off the piece of driftwood used to balance himself and swung the chain that was wrapped around his waist. Under the influence of the huge force, the thick and long chains shot straight down the river and wrapped around a rock. On the other side, Jiang Li quickly put away the chain as it tightened with a clang. After pulling, he quickly sank, avoiding the area covered by the talisman's explosion. His feet finally stepped on the soil of the riverbed. Although his movements were still greatly restricted, the feeling of being on solid ground made him feel much more at ease. Picking up a large rock at the bottom of the river, Jiang Li identified the direction of the water flow and continued forward. Chapter 45, Fire Element Peak Sword Cultivator. Drenched in mud and water, Jiang Li carried a rock that was half the height of a man from the river and walked up step by step. Tui tui. Jiang Li spat out. As soon as he got ashore, he began to clean up the large amount of sand in his nose and mouth. He was dressed in rags and had a dirty look on his face. He was covered in mud and grass, and there were a few plump snails on his forehead. He looked just like a water monkey. Right when he was about to vomit, Jiang Li's movements suddenly stopped. The muscles in his arms suddenly bulged. He threw the rock that he held with all his might. Boom! Halfway through the flight, a stream of light flashed and the rock exploded into pieces. After piercing through the rock, the momentum of the stream of light decreased slightly. With Jiang Li's dynamic vision, he could barely capture the flying trajectory of the stream of light. However, he could not dodge it. Wood armament hardening. Clang! Jiang Li's hands that were covered in wooden armor and spiritual armament grabbed the stream of light tightly in its path. A huge force assaulted him. Jiang Li's legs did not move, but he was still pushed back by the stream of light, creating two ravines on the ground. The thing clutched in his hand struggled and radiated intense heat. It sought to plunge into his body and burn his heart. The wooden armor covering his hand was quickly burned through by the intense heat. Swish! The dark skin covered by spiritual armament touched it directly. A burning pain came and wisps of burnt fragrance floated. However, unexpectedly, this temperature was still within the tolerance range. The status cool skin allowed him to resist the flames very well. The pitch-black hand grabbed the stream of light and forcefully endured it. With the enhancement of the status blood-bursting force, Jiang Li's brute force was astonishing. He forcefully grabbed the moving light and slid for more than 20 meters. He did not stop retreating until he was pushed back to the edge of the river. In his hand, the dazzling light seemed to have exhausted its strength and dissipated. What remained in his hand was a long, dark red sword. FCK, it's a flying sword. Jiang Li cursed before he felt the flying sword in his hand burn again. Still not stopping, let me quench the fire for you. He looked at the turbid river behind him. In the next second, he hugged the red flying sword and turned around, throwing himself into the river. A large amount of bubbles surged, as if the water surface was boiling. Steam continuously turned into white smoke. Damn it, my flying sword. A moment later, a figure in white arrived on a tree crown. However, when he landed, he looked so anxious that those who did not know would think that his wife was having difficulties giving birth. The white-clothed person looked to be very young, not much older than Jiang Li. His face was handsome and clean. In a few years, he would probably be another elegant Casanova who could make countless young girls go crazy. On the chest of his white clothes, there was a small fiery red sword embroidered. This meant that he was a disciple of the Shu Mountain 5 Elements Peak's Fire Element Peak. Red Sky Sword, retrieve, retrieve, retrieve. Why isn't it working? The Shu Mountain 5 Elements Peak's disciple made gestures at the boiling water. However, his precious flying sword was nowhere to be seen. Is it broken? Damn this demon, he scratched his head anxiously. Swoosh! From under the water, a chain shot out, wrapping around him at an astonishing speed. The disciples of the Shu Mountain 5 Elements Peak were all skilled in the way of the sword. At this moment, his flying sword was snatched away and he was suddenly attacked. Before the disciple could react, he was caught in the chains. The chain dragged him toward the water. Although this disciple was at the late-stage Qi refinement realm, his body had not been specially tempered, and his strength was far inferior to Jiang Li. Under the pull of the chains, he continuously slid towards the river bank. Under the water, Jiang Li felt that victory was in his hands. He just had to drag the person who ambushed him into the water and give the other party an unforgettable beating. Then at the next moment, extreme joy turned to sorrow. Sword light technique. On the finger of the 5 Elements Peak disciple's right hand, a blazing red sword light that was 2 feet long suddenly appeared. With a wave of his hand, a thin sword light and a chain that was 2 fingers thick crossed each other. Without any resistance, the first part of the chain was cut off. Although this chain had some background in the end, it was only a mortal item. The original material was too low-grade. It was fine when used normally, but once it collided with spells or even artifacts, the only outcome was destruction. Jiang Li's heart ached. He had spent 3 whole spirit stones on this chain. He immediately jumped out of the water, his hand already grabbing the hilt of the red sky sword. He pounced towards the 5 Elements Peak disciple, who was only 3 steps away as he shouted, "Return my artifact." The disciple of the 5 Elements Peak was shocked as he thought, "What? That thing is actually an artifact." After saying that, Jiang Li had already arrived before him. Jiang Li's momentum was like a ferocious tiger pouncing on its prey. He held the sword in one hand and formed a claw with the other. What was hidden in his strong body was a monster-like brute force. In just a moment, he could tear a weak sword cultivator into pieces. However, the Shu Mountain Five Elements Peak was indeed the leader of the four great sects of the Great Mountain region. Their disciples were truly not cowards. The white-robed sword cultivator did not dodge. Instead, he raised his finger and faced it head-on. The two figures collided abruptly, and the slightly older Five-Element Peak disciple was instead powerless like a child. Jiang Li grabbed his throat and forcefully pressed him to the ground. However, Jiang Li's action stopped abruptly. Because the tip of the red sky sword that was originally held tightly in his left hand had turned 180 degrees at this moment, and the extremely sharp blade was pressed tightly against Jiang Li's neck while emitting a slight burning sensation. The air suddenly turned silent. The two of them faced each other, maintaining a distance that allowed them to kiss at any time. The stalemate lasted for 7 to 8 seconds. During this period, Jiang Li's left hand continuously exerted strength as he attempted to use brute force to regain control of the flying sword. However, after a few tries, he confirmed that the strength of one hand was really unable to fix the flying sword in place. A few seconds later, Jiang Li suddenly smiled brightly and broke the silence first. "Senior brother, do you think there's a misunderstanding between us? I'm a disciple of the Scripture Storage Valley, Jiang Li. I accidentally fell into the water just now and had just come ashore. Why did senior brother use a flying sword to stab me?" Jiang Li called out to him affectionately, but his hand was still tightly holding onto the other party's throat, and he had no intention of letting go at all. However, after he said that, the other party finally came to his senses. It seemed like he had stabbed the wrong person. The four great sects could not be said to be related by blood, but they were at least on the same side. Under normal circumstances, some small conflicts would not warrant fighting and killing. Chapter 46. You're an outer sect disciple. Junior brother, I was too reckless. I mistook you for a water demon and even damaged your artifact. I've really offended you. I am disciple Xianxia of the Shu Mountain Five Elements Peak. Junior brother Jiang Li, can you get up from me first? After all, their current posture was unsightly. Jiang Li only felt the flying sword on his neck loosen. Clearly, this was the other party's sincerity. After all, this was their territory. Jiang Li naturally could not attempt to kill him. Immediately, his right hand that was holding the other party's throat loosened. He turned around and grabbed Xianxia's shoulder, pulling him up. Junior brother Jiang Li, you're really strong. What's with your outfit? Xianxia first caressed the sword with extreme heartache for a long time. After he confirmed that there was no irreversible damage, he turned around to look at Jiang Li's tattered clothes. No, my brute force is nothing. Senior brother's flying sword is the real deal. After Jiang Li praised him, he looked at his naked body and had a helpless expression. He could endure the bite of the piranha, but his clothes could not. I accidentally fell into the water and met a group of piranhas underwater. I'm already lucky to be able to come up like this. He had only brought one set of outer sect disciple robes. There were no clothes to change into. However, he could not stay like this. Without a choice, he could only use his wood armor technique to produce a relatively thin wooden armor to cover his body. Right, senior brother Xianxia, my sense of direction is slightly bad. Senior brother, please guide me in which direction all the senior brothers and teachers of my Scripture Storage Valley are in. As Jiang Li spoke, he also picked up the broken chain. With a pained expression, he gestured at the two broken ends and attempted to match them. That action made Xianxia's expression twitch. Swim downstream for 10, forget it, I'll send you there. It won't be good if you get misunderstood by my senior brothers and uncle masters and they attack you again. He had not expected that Xianxia would be so warm-hearted. As he spoke, he even helped Jiang Li out, causing Jiang Li to involuntarily sigh. There was warmth everywhere in the cultivation world. However, this also made him sigh with emotion at the good cultivation atmosphere of the Shu Mountain Five Elements Peak. The Shu Mountain Five Elements Peak was different from the other large sects. They did not have an internal division at all. Their disciples would directly become disciples of the Five Peaks and learn from their masters. Perhaps in order to maintain a pure heart of the sword, although their sect had its own competition among the Five Peaks, there were very few internal conflicts. The elder of the outer sect cultivation hall had also said that the disciples of the Shu Mountain Five Elements Peak were the easiest to get along with. Send me over. Senior brother Yin Qiu, are you bringing me there through sword kinesis flight? Jiang Li subconsciously thought that the flying sword could definitely enlarge and fly with people. My sword still can't carry the weight of people. We'll board a ship. Yin Qiu, even if I can bring people with me, they must be my Tao companions. How can I bring you? Jiang Li followed the Five Elements Peak disciple, Yin Qiu, along the river bank for a period of time, and he quickly saw a long and narrow small boat that was leaning against the shore. Yin Qiu was the first to jump over, landing lightly on the small ship that was only slightly thicker than wood. The water under the ship rippled twice, but the ship did not shake at all. This was a movement technique. Jiang Li felt so bitter and jealous at this moment. This was the difference between having a master and not having one. The other party's skills were clearly arranged for him. As long as he followed the prescribed order and continued learning, it would turn out well. On the other hand, Jiang Li could only do things blindly. It was really miserable. However, if he could win the sect competition, he would be able to enter the inner sect. At that time, he would have to find a reliable elder to acknowledge as his master. Junior brother Jiang Li, why aren't you coming up? Yin Qiu clearly saw Jiang Li's embarrassment and urged with a smile. I'm coming. Jiang Li rolled his eyes at the other party before suddenly stepping on the back of the small ship. Jiang Li himself was a body cultivator, and his muscles and weight were not light. Coupled with the dozens of kilograms of iron chains around his waist, when he landed, the stern of the ship sank, and the bow of the ship rose up, causing Yin Qiu to be almost thrown out directly. You. The sword cultivator, Yin Qiu, finally stabilized the small ship with his qi. It seemed that he was indeed a sword cultivator. His qi nourishment skill was indeed astonishing. Forget it. Stand firm, don't blame me if you fall. Yin Qiu used his foot to pick up a bamboo pole by the side. After grabbing it in his hand, he pulled it towards the water surface. The small boat shot out like an arrow. Jiang Li had long guessed that this fellow was up to no good. He threw out the chains and tied them to the ship. No matter how fast it was, he would not fall off. Senior brother Yin Qiu, what are those bamboo poles on the river? As the small boat sailed across the water, Jiang Li noticed that there were a few bamboo poles erected on the river from time to time. One end of the bamboo pole was painted black and the other was painted white. The bamboo pole would rise and fall in the river from time to time, arranging in a disorderly manner. However, one could faintly see a pattern within. That's yin-yang bamboo. It's used to detect yin-qi underwater. Didn't your master tell you? Yin Qiu did not suspect that Jiang Li was not from the scripture storage valley. If that was the case, why would he be foolish enough to fall into their trap? I'm just a small outer sect disciple of the scripture storage valley. Who would teach me such things? Look at the artifact I'm using. It's barely worth anything. Jiang Li was complaining to himself here, but Yin Qiu did not want to listen anymore. He stopped pushing the boat and turned around to glare at Jiang Li. Outer sect disciple, you're actually an outer sect disciple. I was actually pressed to the ground by an outer sect disciple. A dignified disciple of the Shu Mountain Five Elements Peak had actually fallen prey to an outer sect disciple of the scripture storage valley. If word got out, he would be embarrassed. If he knew that Jiang Li had only entered the sect for a few months, he would probably overturn the ship. The flying sword on Yin Qiu's back trembled non-stop. He pulled out a small segment and stabbed it back again and again. He really wanted to prove himself. However, there was not much space on the small ship. As a long-range fighter, he had experienced the consequences of fighting like this. When did your scripture storage valley become so formidable? Even an outer sect disciple like you has such standards. Yin Qiu expressed his doubt, but after looking at the chain, he still agreed with Jiang Li. How could inner sect disciples be so poor? This is for you. Consider it your compensation. As a disciple of the Shu Mountain Five Elements Peak, his strong confidence was shaken at this moment. After holding it in for a long time, he did not know what to say. He took out a stone from his body and threw it to Jiang Li. Name: Kunsteel ore. Type: ore. Metal content: 57%. Formation: slow dripping water. Description: hard. Elementary element: Kunsteel. Secondary element: silicon dioxide. How can I accept this? I've also caused senior brother's flying sword to be damaged. I can't accept this. As he spoke, he placed the ore into his pocket discreetly. Chapter 47, Relaying to the Sect. Kid from the Five Elements Peak, why are you here? Jiang Li and Yin Qiu pulled the boat along. After paddling for a long time, they saw a white robe on the surface of the water holding a stack of yin-yang bamboos and stabbing them into the water. As he slowed down and approached, he realized that it was a wooden puppet with a frown on its face. When it saw them arrive, the wooden puppet very humanely wiped away the non-existent sweat on its face and spoke to them. Jiang Li was delighted to see the familiar puppet and hear a familiar voice. He had met someone familiar. Elder Xianxia, I am disciple Jiang Li. Senior brother Yin Qiu helped to bring me here. The wooden puppet scratched its head in bewilderment. Jiang Li, I seem to have heard this name before. Jiang Li, it turns out our relationship wasn't mutual. Elder, I have a dual-attribute spiritual root. You've given me pointers before. Jiang Li reminded him at the right time. Oh, right, I remember now. There really is such a Jiang Li. Did you take the mission alone? Didn't an elder lead the team? Elder Xianxia might have drank too much wine while hugging the wine jar, and his mind was not looking too clear. Forget it. I'm short-handed right now. Hurry up and come over. Yin Qiu, you've worked hard to take care of the disciple of my scripture storage valley. I'll praise you the next time I see your uncle master. The puppet waved his hand and politely gestured for them to leave. Yin Qiu naturally saw through his intention and did not show any displeasure. Elder Wang, you're too polite. Yin Qiu will take his leave. As soon as he finished speaking, Yin Qiu tossed the bamboo pole to Jiang Li, and then the flying sword, red sky sword, on his back was unsheathed. The elegant white-clothed sword cultivator stepped on the flying sword and stood with his hands behind his back as he flew along the surface of the water, leaving behind only a single sentence. Junior brother Jiang Li, let's fight another. Standing with that graceful posture. As the longsword pierced through the wind, its sharpness reached the peak. This was truly immortal cultivation. On the other hand, without Yin Qiu to maintain his balance on the small ship, Jiang Li immediately started to lean left and right. A thick and thin bamboo pole was swung around by him like a balance beam. If not for Elder Xianxia, who controlled the wooden puppet to step on the small boat, Jiang Li would probably have fallen into the water to enjoy the fish bites again. Speak, now that he's gone, what did you want to tell me earlier with that subtle expression? Who said that Elder Xianxia was drunk? Wasn't he very perceptive and meticulous? Elder, we've discovered something, Jiang Li said seriously. He tried his best to use simple and clear words to talk about the 2,000 children with spiritual root aptitude. You're saying that there are more than 2,000 children who had been tested positive for their spiritual root aptitude. Elder Xianxia also became serious. More than 2,000 people with spiritual root aptitude were equivalent to the number of disciples recruited in 3 or 4 immortal ascension assemblies. It could directly increase the number of outer sect disciples by a quarter. To the scripture storage valley, which had less than 300 years of history, it was already quite a good harvest. But that was not the point. The main point was, why did this group of children all have spiritual root aptitude? Was this related to their coma? Was it some special method that could allow mortals to have spiritual roots? No, that was impossible. This idea was too bold. Elder Xianxia subconsciously denied this guess. After all, countless cultivators and mortals had tried to alter their destiny since ancient times, but they had all failed. Even if one could really alter their fate and create spiritual roots, it would definitely be an extremely rare case. It was impossible for it to be produced on such a large scale. However, even if that was not the case, even if one took 10,000 steps back and treated this kind of coma as only a special phenomenon, it was still a large-scale phenomenon that targeted those with spiritual root aptitude. As long as they understood this phenomenon and the Scripture Storage Valley mastered this method, they could easily test their spiritual roots on a large scale and no longer need to rely on others. Think about it, with such an advantage, the Scripture Storage Valley could easily loot a large number of disciples in the Great Mountain region. In time, when the next generation of disciples matured, the Scripture Storage Valley would definitely become the #1 immortal sect of the Great Mountain region. As such, to the Scripture Storage Valley, the matters in the capital of the Southern Seal Kingdom were much more important than the Golden Core zombie demon. Elder Wang, there are 7 outer sect disciples with me on this mission. They are still in the capital city, protecting the news from being leaked. However, their strength is limited. There are too many rogue cultivators gathered because of the birth of the demon. I'm afraid they won't be able to last long. It's precisely because it will take too long to return to the sect and report this that we were afraid of an accident. So I followed that disciple all the way down here to seek help from the elders. Jiang Li did not say it out loud, but his face clearly wrote, this disciple had gone through danger several times and had worked hard to get here. Elder, don't forget my contribution. You've done very well. I'll immediately notify the sect about this news. You won't be missing any rewards. Come over to my side first. Xianxia was a shrewd person as well, so how could he not see through Jiang Li's thoughts? However, not only had Jiang Li rendered a meritorious service, he had even offered this merit to him. So what if he rewarded Jiang Li for this? The frowning wooden puppet patted the small ship. Jiang Li saw that it was as if an extremely thin thread was connected to the small ship. In the next second, the small ship was pulled by a huge force and sped towards the river bank at a speed several times faster than before. Jiang Li could not even stand steadily while holding the chain. His body lowered, and he almost squatted down to hug the small ship. Bang! 2 minutes later, the long, thin, and long boat that was like a shuttle suddenly rushed to the river bank. After sliding for dozens of meters, it finally stopped in a simple shed. In the shed, a short cultivator with grayish-white hair and a rosy complexion was holding a communication spirit stone and saying something. Who else could it be but the elder of the Mystic Gate Hall, Xianxia? Jiang Li did not speak and waited silently at the side. Jiang Li, come over and tell us everything. Elder Xianxia handed the communication spirit stone over. Jiang Li grabbed the spirit stone and felt a voice in his ear. The sex team has already set off. Now tell me everything you know in detail. Don't leave out anything. The voice on the other side was extremely stern, and it did not say what the outcome would be if Jiang Li lied. After all, it would only be 10 times worse than the worst situation Jiang Li could imagine. Jiang Li cleared his throat and spoke about everything that he had seen and heard along the way without holding any opinions, including the yellowed and withered plants in the forest and the few groups of rogue cultivators that had attacked them in the city. Jiang Li still did not understand the reason why plants turned yellow. It might be better to let the sect investigate it. As for those rogue cultivators, they had to pay the price for being so bold. Very good. If you recall anything else, report it immediately. Follow Elder Wang for this period of time. With that, he hung up. Jiang Li did not know who the other party was, but from Elder Wang Sanqi's attitude, it was obvious that the other party was a higher-up with a greater position than him. Chapter 48, Five Senses Enhancement. The importance of this news to the Scripture Storage Valley did not exceed Jiang Li's expectations. If Xianxia and the rest were still on the first level, they would only see the thousands of spirit stones that the children could bring. The sect stood at a higher angle and saw the second level. What they valued was this phenomenon itself, and they hoped to obtain greater benefits through it. As for Jiang Li, he was probably at the third level. Kid Jiang Li, you've done well. You've encountered a great fortuitous encounter this time. As long as nothing unexpected happens, the sect will not treat you badly. You can even become an inner sect disciple directly. Jiang Li returned the communication spirit stone. Elder Wang Sanqi looked to be in a rather good mood. Just as he thought, the bulk of the credit should land on the other party. After all, identity and status were linked to one another. This was very normal. As for what he meant by nothing unexpected, it naturally referred to, Elder, don't worry, what I said is the truth. There's no lie at all, there won't be any issue. Jiang Li naturally knew what the other party was most worried about. It was none other than the truth of the information. He had confirmed this point over and over again, and there was no problem. It's good that you're confident. What's wrong? What a strange expression. If you want to say something, just say it. After obtaining the benefits, Elder Wang Sanqi clearly spoke a lot more than last time. He saw Jiang Li's expression and wanted to speak but hesitated, so he could not help but ask. It's like this, Elder Wang. Apart from joining the inner sect, what else can I choose? Before the credit could be given to him, Jiang Li started to worry about this matter. Oh, why? There are many benefits to being an inner sect disciple. Can't this satisfy you? Wang Sanqi's rosy face was a little puzzled and dissatisfied. Generally speaking, the inner sect was the lifelong dream of most outer sect disciples. In particular, Jiang Li only had a medium-grade spiritual root. He felt that Jiang Li wanted more and was a little greedy. Elder, isn't the outer sect competition soon? I want to rely on my own ability to enter the inner sect. Jiang Li did not say that those senior brothers in the outer sect were all trash, and he was afraid of wasting the reward from this opportunity. Instead, he said that he wanted to rely on his own hard work. They were all the same, but one sounded scheming, while the other sounded commendable. Jiang Li's answer stunned the elder, and his expression became much gentler. These people were like this. They were so confident in their own beliefs that they liked to evaluate others with their own values. Even if it was only a suggestion that was not accepted, it might still cause them to be dissatisfied. Therefore, before their statuses were equal or surpassed, Jiang Li still had to go along with their view. Oh, you're so confident in winning the outer sect competition. No, wait, you had a conflict with that disciple from the Shu Mountain 5 Elements Peak. Wang Sanqi did not notice it before. Only now did he remember Yin Qiu's strange action and the last words he left behind. The sword cultivators of the Shu Mountain 5 Elements Peak were famous for their strength. Previously, he had actually invited Jiang Li to battle. It could be seen that Jiang Li definitely had his unique points. I had a little conflict with senior brother Yin Qiu at the beginning, but I didn't embarrass the Scripture Storage Valley. Jiang Li modestly cupped his hands. However, his meaning was clear. He did not lose. You actually didn't lose against a disciple of the 5 Elements Peak. Elder Wang Sanqi's surprise was exactly the same as Yin Qiu's expression earlier. As expected, outer sect disciples were looked down upon. They were disdained for having low aptitude, resources, and status at the lowest level. I really did not expect this. The disciples of the 5 Elements Peak are not simple. You have only entered the sect for a few months and you already have such ability. It's no wonder you are so confident. Since you have such thoughts, I have a suggestion. After Jiang Li heard this, his eyes lit up and he seemed to be in thought. Elder Wang, I have a request. If someone owed you a favor, it was best to cash in on the spot. Otherwise, it would become worthless later. Jiang Li understood the reasoning behind this, especially for people who drank alcohol every day and did not have a good memory. At this moment, he could not be bothered about embarrassing himself. He cupped his hands towards Elder Wang again and requested, "Speak, as an elder, I should give you some rewards in advance." This was the reward Jiang Li deserved for handing over the credit of this mission to the other party. "Elder, I want to learn the technique that allows you to see and hear the outside world through the puppet." He really had no choice. The zombie puppet technique could control zombies, but it could not share the five senses. When he was close to the black zombie, it was not a big deal, but now he had already been ashore for half a day. But the black zombie's condition was a little strange. As if it had sunk into something, no matter how he controlled it, it could not get out. The weakness of the zombie puppet technique in this aspect was too great. If he could make up for it, it was best to do so. At the very least, he had to find that black zombie first. "You want to learn the five senses technique?" Elder Xianxia was slightly surprised. This five senses technique is an unusual skill. It's not difficult to learn, but if this technique isn't paired with a puppet technique, it won't be able to produce much effect. "Kid, you're a jack of all trades already. Do you really want to learn this?" He glanced at the registered disciple token of the alchemy hall that Jiang Li hung, because his clothes were damaged. "This alchemy skill is enough for a cultivator to study for life. You still want to learn puppet techniques?" "Elder, I have another use for this five senses technique. Please teach me." Jiang Li thought to himself, "Why is this elder so nosy? There is no choice but to assure him further." "All right, this is the jade slip for the five senses technique. If you have any questions, feel free to ask." The elder took out a jade slip from nowhere and casually handed it to Jiang Li. Jiang Li asked many difficult questions on the spot, and then he ran to a nearby house and sat down before starting to cultivate. Unusual techniques like these were not part of the five elements or yin-yang. They were magical spell techniques that used a cultivator's wisdom to see through the mysteries of the world. Incantations, secret talismans, rituals, and everything unorthodox were included. Just as Elder Xianxia had said, it was not difficult to cultivate this five senses technique. At the very least, the most basic mastery was not difficult. However, if he wanted to reach Elder Wang's level, who could simultaneously send out dozens of puppets and control them for an entire day, it was still quite difficult. The five senses technique was divided into two parts: spell technique and spell seal. Under normal circumstances, cultivators had to first make hand seals on puppets or other objects with the five orifices, leaving behind passageways and nodes that could allow their minds to enter. Through a spell technique, one's five orifices would be connected to it, achieving the effect of the five senses being connected. Five senses technique level 1 learned. Using the five senses technique, added status, five senses enhancement. Five senses enhancement. The orifices of the ears and eyes are interlinked. Duration, 3 seconds minus plus. Chapter 49, Underwater Cemetery. The first time Jiang Li successfully used the five senses technique, 6 hours had already passed. This was the lowest standard. It could be seen that his enlightenment attribute of 1.1 was indeed not considered good. This was his first time using the five senses technique, so the effects were naturally not good. Not only did he only open 2 of his 5 orifices, but he could only maintain it for 3 seconds. However, the status bar that immediately appeared and the clarity of the connected senses made him feel joy internally. As expected, the zombie puppet technique, which had a stronger connection with him, could also be used as the sensing node of the five senses technique. This was enough. Jiang Li used the five senses technique again. After the status five senses enhancement appeared, he directly pressed the plus button. The time jumped to 63 seconds. A single press of the plus button would increase the duration by 1 minute. After holding it for 5 seconds, the duration would become infinite. 5 senses enhancement. The orifices of the ears and eyes are interlinked. Duration, infinity minus. After his status changed to this state, the connection that he felt would be cut off at any time finally stabilized and flowed smoothly. So be it if he only connected the eyes and ears, for a total of 2 orifices. The mouth and nose were not very useful to zombies anyway. On the other hand, the 5th orifice, tongue, that represented a qualitative change, could not be grasped in a short period of time, so Jiang Li did not force it. He did not wait any longer. He slowly sank into his consciousness and connected his vision and hearing to the black zombie through the orifice node. It was as if he had an extra pair of eyes and ears. The overlapping of his senses made him feel a little confused. He could not multitask yet, so he could only concentrate fully on controlling the black zombie. In front of him was a murky and dim liquid, and in his ears was the sound of drums caused by the high pressure of the river water. Compared to his previous experience when he dived, it felt a little slow, but there was not much difference. At this moment, the black zombie was still lying in the water without any desires, slowly floating without any accidents. However, when Jiang Li controlled the black zombie to splash around in the water and flipped over to take a look, the scene before his eyes was vastly different from before. In the murky river water, there were actually dense patches of ghostly green flames floating. Under the black zombie's feet, there were rotting bones, as well as bloated and rotting corpses. Countless broken limbs were like ordinary leaves in the forest, covering the riverbed in layers. Perhaps the quality was inferior, but there was a massive number of them. It was more than 10 times or 100 times more magnificent than the outer sect graveyard of the scripture storage valley. How is this possible? Jiang Li's main body opened his eyes and ran to the riverside to look down. He did not see anything. Not only that, but the yin-yang bamboo on the river surface that was arranged in an orderly fashion did not move at all. This should not be happening. In his senses, it was clearly in this region. Moreover, he had come all the way under the water and had clearly not seen a single corpse in this area of the river. This did not make sense. Why couldn't he see anything when he was down there? How did the black zombie get in so easily? Could it be that it was a place that could only be entered by a corpse? The expression on Jiang Li's face changed several times. In the end, he undid his belt by the riverside and soaked it in water. Only then did he return to his seat with a satisfied expression. His attention returned to the black zombie. He controlled the stiff body to swim upwards. For a zombie, that was very difficult. After trying a few times, Jiang Li gave up and could only control the black zombie to continue exploring. He moved forward step by step among the white bones. Night vision was not a problem for zombies. Moreover, with the ghost fire dotted around like stars in the sky, his vision was still quite clear. As he walked, Jiang Li was surprised to discover that there was actually a type of fish living in this dangerous underwater land filled with yin qi. It was an extremely ugly deepwater lanternfish. They ate the rotting corpses at the bottom of the sea. A small lamp hung on their foreheads, illuminating the small area in front of them, floating around underwater like ghosts. Is this a ghost lanternfish? I remember that the records only mention this kind of spiritual fish in ancient times. It's completely extinct now. I didn't expect to see it here. The black zombie continued to move forward. In the deep and silent underwater space, it was like a traveler who was lost in the desert and would never get out. Unknowingly, a day and night had passed. Elder Xianxia received another call from the communication spirit stone and received good news. The flying ship of the sect had already arrived at the southern Seal Kingdom and had successfully brought away the 2,000 children. It was said that when the flying ship arrived, the capital was in a mess. A few rogue cultivators were stirring up trouble, planning to flee immediately after grabbing a handful. As a result, the flying ship made a move, and the thieves were executed on the spot. Unfortunately, 2 of the 7 outer sect disciples died. Of course, such a small matter would not be taken to heart by the sect elders. It could be seen from how they called this good news. After a series of checks by the sect's professionals, it was confirmed that all those children had spiritual root aptitude. Therefore, Elder Xianxia could not hide the smile on his face. He found Jiang Li and encouraged him again, saying that he wanted to seek credit for him. The reward that they had agreed on earlier was not a problem. During this period of time, the other inner sect disciples who were stationed here with Elder Wang had also returned. They were a little surprised that there was an outer sect disciple who only knew how to meditate all day, but they did not probe deeper. Each time they rested, they would only meditate for a few hours before riding the small boat again and paddling into the river. They were busy as if their goal was clear. After a long time, the black zombie under the water kept walking in one direction. Finally, from a certain moment on, Jiang Li discovered that the ghost flames around him seemed to have become more concentrated. No matter what, it was good to have some changes. He controlled the black zombie to adjust its direction several times. As he walked, with his zombie body, he could clearly sense that the yin qi was becoming denser. In the outside world, the most obvious result was that the number of bones on the ground decreased, and in their place were countless perfectly preserved mortal corpses. This was very interesting. He was now basically certain that this underwater graveyard was where the zombie demon was hiding. However, he did not know what kind of secret this place had. Continuing forward, Jiang Li seemed to have seen a coffin floating in the underwater graveyard far away from the countless corpses. Countless ghost flames surrounded it. At this moment, his body was gently shaken. He opened his eyes and saw that it was Elder Xianxia and a few inner sect disciples. Jiang Li, it might be dangerous later on. Move back a little more and don't get close to the river bank. Elder, what are you doing? Jiang Li's eyes narrowed. Behind Elder Wang, a few inner sect disciples and dozens of wooden puppets carried several corpses. Some of these corpses were beasts and some were humans, but they all had a common trait. The surface of the corpses was covered in talismans. Obviously, he was not the only smart person. Chapter 50, Yin Corpse. Many cultivators had occupied this region for such a long time. Some went to the sky while others went to the water. They nearly flipped over this entire region. If no one discovered this abnormality, they could forget about cultivating with such brains. Now, it seemed that not only had they discovered the problem, but they had also found a solution. At this moment, Jiang Li was no longer the naive kid from back then. After these few months of lessons in the cultivation hall, although he was not confident in other aspects, coupled with his appraisal skill, his understanding had already improved greatly. Many basic knowledge of the cultivation world could no longer stump him. The corpses in their hands were covered in talismans. They were formed by combining the three attributes of wind, fire, and earth. It was a spirit talisman trap. It was said to be a device that was often used to guard the sect ruins and tombs of cultivators. It could be triggered and controlled remotely. Once it was ignited, the power would be extraordinary. Therefore, it was best to avoid such things. These were the words of the lecture elder. Now, the disciples and puppets were carrying at least 50 of such corpse bombs. It seemed that they wanted to stir up some trouble. Don't ask so much. Find a safe place to stay. If you can't do it yourself, go find Yin Qiu from the Shu Mountain 5 Elements Peak. He should be hiding too. Elder Xianxia clearly did not want to speak with him anymore. After reminding him, he led the disciples and puppets towards the river. His short figure appeared extraordinary at this moment. Dozens of puppets behind him cried or laughed as they surrounded him, forming a strange array. Above the river, the wide surface of the water glistened under the night light. There were at least hundreds of cultivators, some flying in the sky and some stepping on the water, waiting in the sky above the mother river. There's a full moon tonight. I'm afraid there will be a decisive battle. Jiang Li did not know how powerful a golden core zombie demon was. At the very least, he was not interested in experiencing it personally at the moment. Jiang Li decisively stood up, patted his bottom and turned around to leave. He jumped into the forest beside the river in a few steps, and his figure flew into the dense forest. Some of the obstructions in the vines were knocked over by him, and his speed kept rising. After running for a few minutes, he jumped onto the treetop. With his eyesight that was several times that of others, he could barely see the mother river. Only then did Jiang Li stop. He hurriedly found a tree hole and strangled a large snake inside before hurriedly entering to continue meditating. His consciousness returned to the black zombie's location. However, he looked around and saw that there were either bones or corpses. There was nothing that could be used as a defensive shelter. He did not know what to do, so he squatted down and used the foot-long zombie nails to quickly dig up the bones and corpses on the ground. Bones and corpses with an overall structure were obviously easier to dig than dirt. Soon, he dug a small hole for it. He controlled the black zombie to jump down and started to dig around. He placed the surrounding corpses on his body and completed the disguise. Through the gaps in the bones, he could still see the situation outside. While Jiang Li was digging the hole, the cultivators above the river finally began to move. The leaders of the major sects issued the orders. One corpse after another was thrown into the river. Plop, plop. After splashing around, they sank into the water. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Time passed slowly, but the cultivators above the river were confident and continued to throw corpses into the river. It was a wonder where they had gotten so many corpses. The corpses of wild beasts were easy to get, and it was not difficult for a group of cultivators to do so, but could it be that those 500 human corpses were all prisoners? As the bait corpses were thrown in, above the river, the cultivators could not sense anything, but the black zombie in the underwater graveyard felt the entire world start to tremble slightly. The source of the tremor was underground. Something is coming out. In the next moment, more than 100 huge tentacles that were as thick as a person's arms shot out from under the riverbed covered in bones. It was as if a demonic dragon was dancing. The huge tentacles only stretched out a few times before stirring up the entire underwater graveyard to become turbid. Countless ghost flames floated along with the flow of the water. From the black zombie's perspective, it looked like a parade of 100 demons. Jiang Li originally already felt that the black zombie was going to die this time, but those huge tentacles ignored it. Instead, they began to continuously extend, as if they were attracted by something, reaching towards the pitch-black top of the underwater graveyard. These tentacles were small in size, and their tips were only as thick as a child's arm. After reaching a height of 100 meters, they pierced into a layer of pitch-black liquid. So it seemed that the top of this place was not solid. This liquid stratification structure was probably very similar to the thermocline geological phenomenon on Earth in his previous life. Between the upper and lower layers, due to the huge difference in temperature, there was a discontinuity in pressure. The high pressure below supported the liquid layer in the middle, forming another layer of riverbed. As time passed, the upper layer of the riverbed became stiff and solid, completely separating the two water regions into several completely unrelated ecosystems. This was probably the reason why the underwater graveyard was formed. A moment later, the tentacle retreated into the sky above the liquid body. It pulled down a corpse covered in yellow talismans. Could it be that the black zombie was pulled down from above like this? What exactly were these tentacles? Jiang Li wanted to throw an appraisal at it, but his main body was not there, so he could not use it. At this moment, another tentacle grew out of the riverbed beside the black zombie. While he was shocked, he saw the markings on the surface of the tentacle. These were not tentacles, they were extremely thick roots. More and more roots poked out of the riverbed, extending to the top of the graveyard. After passing through the surface, they pulled down more corpses that were covered in talismans. The cultivators above the river were also calm. After discovering that the corpses that had been thrown down had disappeared, they did not immediately move. It was not until the number of remote-controlled bombs reached a terrifying number that the few cultivators led by the various large sects sent a signal to each other and formed hand seals at the same time. Boom, 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 boom. Flames of explosion lit up at the same time. All kinds of talismans had clearly been made waterproof, and they still displayed shocking might under the deep water. Even with the black zombie's slow body, he felt the surrounding water pressure increase. The corpses covering the surface were washed away by the water. The black zombie was also swept up by the shock wave, floating in the murky water. One side of the membrane of its ears was directly pierced through, while the other side also temporarily lost its hearing, with only a buzzing sound remaining. But at this time, when its hearing was almost completely useless, a wavelength of different frequencies was directly transmitted into Jiang Li's mind through the zombie puppet technique. Something had been angered by the explosion. Before the black zombie that was blown up could sink to the bottom, everything turned black. An extremely thick tree root wrapped around it. Next, the world spun. A large amount of water collided with the black zombie. It seemed like it was thrown out by the tree root. A moment later, as if it had broken through a soft and sticky barrier, the surrounding water environment suddenly changed. From the ghastly underwater graveyard, it returned to the normal river water above. Even the zombie could not sense any yin qi. What was it doing? As he wondered, the black zombie's momentum did not stop. With a splash, water splattered as the black zombie flew into the air heavily. In the spinning black zombie's perspective, Jiang Li saw that in the sky, a group of cultivators who were stepping on artifacts were displaying their abilities, all types of gorgeous attack methods smashing into the water like meteors. Their target was the countless corpses that were thrown out along with the black zombie. Most of the corpses had been shattered by the spell talismans as soon as they had left the water. However, there were too many corpses that were thrown out, and the speed was too swift. Endless corpses were tossed out of the water, and it was inevitable that some of them would slip through the net. Growl! The corpses that had not been shattered in time were instantly transformed by the moonlight. An inhuman roar came from their throats. Their pitch-black tongues were 7 feet long. Borrowing the momentum of the tree root, they pounced at the hundreds of cultivators in the air. Yin corpses. Yin corpses had no life, no soul, and no thoughts. They were evil creatures that were mobilized by the yin qi, and they were even more dirty and vicious than zombies and ghosts. A sword light flashed past. Under the enhancement of spiritual qi, the incomparably sharp spirit sword easily cut a yin corpse that pounced over like cutting tofu from head to toe. However, not only was that cultivator not happy, he was even flustered and exasperated as he hurriedly retreated, controlling his artifact to continuously rise up. The reason was that, after the yin corpse was cut open, the thick black liquid inside directly poured out like exploding magma. The sticky liquid that carried strong poison and yin qi touched the spirit sword and the cultivator's body. It was as if hot oil had been poured, immediately emitting sizzling sounds. The light on the cultivator's body and artifact immediately dimmed, as they were corroded by the sinister liquid. The cultivators who had originally stopped above the surface of the water were even more unlucky. For some reason, those yin corpses did not sink in the water. Unlike zombies, the yin corpses were not as stiff and slow. Their bodies were stronger than that of animals, and they quickly ran across the water. In an instant, the cultivators on the surface of the water were surrounded by a group of yin corpses. They could neither advance nor retreat, and they were badly battered by these yin corpses that were only slightly stronger than wild beasts. This method of corroding one's artifact and Tao body was truly disgusting. It was easy for them to slash the yin corpses with their swords, but even if they killed them, they would still be splashed with the disgusting liquid. It was simply a huge loss even if they obtained victory.